Let's look at this Heisman Trophy race starting in Gainesville. What are the chances that Tim Tebow sees another Heisman Trophy?
Well, Dana, I think he's an overwhelming favorite right now. He's the star quarterback of the #1 ranked team in the country, which is trying to win its third BCS championship in 4 years. He's completing 64% of his passes with 6 touchdowns. He's Florida's leading rusher. I think he's the most valuable player on any team in the country. I think the question is how quickly does he come back from this concussion? I agree with Chris Lowe. If he comes back, plays against LSU next week, and leads Florida to a victory, he's going to be tough to overlook.
Let's move on to Colt McCoy, his chances.
I agree with Tim Griffin on this one, too. He's gotten off to a slow start. His passing statistics dwarf what Tebow's done through the air with nearly 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, but he's already throwing 5 picks after throwing only 8 all of last season. Also, he's not running the ball as much because #2 Texas finally has some tailbacks they can count on, so his production's down. Has to have a big game in the Red River rivalry. And I think another issue is I think there are a lot of voters out there that'll feel like, hey, it's his turn. Bradford won it last year. Tebow won it 2 years ago. It's Colt McCoy's turn.
You mentioned Bradford. We only really saw him for a half of a game. What are his chances of repeating?
I think it's going to be tough. If you look at that Heisman watch on ESPN.com this week, he didn't get a single vote from first place through 5th place. I think he's been out of sight, out of mind. He sprained that AC joint first week against BYU, hasn't played since. I think the only way he gets back into the race, if he comes back, plays lights out, and Oklahoma somehow gets back into the BCS championship hunt.
We're seeing a lot of other names in there, too, so let's talk about some of those. Cincinnati quarterback Tony Pike, one of them. What do you think his chances are?
Probably the biggest breakthrough performer of the season. He's led the Bearcats to a surprising 4-0 start, even more surprising, a top 10 ranking, completing 70.5% of his passes for more than 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. His chances will be hurt because his team plays in the Big East. They don't play a ranked opponent the rest of the way. But if Cincinnati finishes unbeaten and gets to a BCS bowl game, it's going to be really tough to overlook his production and his leadership.
Notre Dame's Jimmy Clausen certainly has the national spotlight on him. How are his Heisman chances?
Well, he plays quarterback at Notre Dame, which doesn't hurt, obviously.
Yeah.
And, you know, great fourth-quarter comebacks the last 2 weeks. I really thought he had a signature moment against Purdue this past weekend. Came off the bench after sitting out most of the fourth quarter because of that painful turf toe injury. He's put up great numbers so far, 65.8% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, only 1 pick, #4 in the country, and pass efficiency. But like Charlie Weiss, he needs a signature win. He's got to beat USC in 3 weeks.
We talked with Case Keenum a little bit earlier on First Take. What do you think? He's getting some buzz out there.
Yeah, getting a lot of buzz. He looks more and more like a Heisman Trophy candidate every week. He already led Houston to an upset at #5 Oklahoma State. Second week of the season. Last week scores the winning touchdown against Texas Tech on a touchdown run in the last few minutes of that game. He's completed nearly 70% of his passes, 1,160 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think just like Tony Pike, Houston probably has to finish undefeated, get to a BCS bowl game for him to have a legitimate shot.
Mark Schlabach, thanks for handicapping the Heisman for us. We'll talk to you later in the week.
Thanks, Dana.